Hello and welcome to Jordan and Me. I'm Brendan, or Charlie, but that's not what's important here. What's important here is Jordan. Hello.
Hello.
And you brought a topic for us to talk about. What's that?
Yeah, we can talk about musical theater just in general. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. My experience. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, we will definitely get into all of that. But before we do, as always, I'm going to contextualize how we know each other. It is helped by the fact that several of our mutual friends have been on at this point. Uh, I've mentioned before the trivia Discord. I guess an additional piece of information unique to you is that it was run by your brother, which is how it started.
Correct.
Um, so yeah, this is another member of the. Well, I referred to it as trivia Discord, but that's not actually accurate. It is just your guys' friend Discord.
Yeah, it's you got introduced to it as the trivia Discord, so
Yes.
hasn't been used for trivia in quite a while though.
Yeah. Yeah. So theater is obviously
Hmm.
a big thing for you.
Hmm.
Um, you were you were in OTL in college, right? The
Yes. Yeah.
troupe or production, whatever they call a gaggle of theater kids.
Yeah. Organization. Whatever. We were a hot mess.
Was that your introduction to theater, or did you do it before then?
No. Yeah. So I did it before then. I've pretty much been doing it more or less since I was a kid. Um, I did one show when I was like kind of 7 or something years old when my brother was in high school. But then started doing it for real myself in seventh grade. And I've been doing it pretty consistently ever since.
Okay. So when you did it as a kid, was that just a thing of like your brother was doing it and they needed a kid, or was it a thing you were already interested in?
Um, I didn't really know I was interested in it. I mean, my parents, especially my mom and my grandma, like they always sang and stuff. So I knew I liked music, I guess, but they were just doing a show that needed a bunch of children. They were doing I don't know if you're familiar with the show Evita. Um, it's about Eva Peron and like the story of them in Argentina during her rule and stuff. But they needed just a bunch of kids to play the children of Argentina. And since my brother was in school, I think they just kind of said, "Yeah, you could do this. Do you want to?" I assume I was excited. All I remember is that audition when I went in, I have never been more scared in my entire life.
Yeah, this will be interesting because I like musical theater a lot.
Mhm.
However, I have next to no musical talent and would never be able to get on stage and do anything like that. Like my anxiety would destroy me even auditioning for anything like that. Um, but I've always been very interested in it.
Mhm.
We're sort of the opposite ends of this thing where you do it all the time and I
Yeah.
watch with interest from the side.
Yeah.
Um, so what would you say is the first one that you like chose to do yourself as like an active interest thing?
Yeah. Um, so the first one that I chose to do was in seventh grade. So my junior high was doing the Music Man. Um, my high school had a really good musical theater program, and like I knew I was interested in it at that point. So I was like, oh, okay, they're doing a show here. I'll try it out. Um, so yeah, so I auditioned for the Music Man. Remember being wildly unprepared. I think I sang "Happy Birthday" for my audition because I didn't plan anything out until like 3 hours before the day. Um, but that was kind of the first one. To be honest, that show kind of sucked. Um, it was fine. It was fun. But then the next year was the first show that I did that I actually like really enjoyed myself and knew that I wanted to keep doing it.
What show was that?
Godspell.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was I played Jesus in that in eighth grade, and that was like the first time one that I'd had like a good part in anything, and then yeah, it was after that it was a very good experience, much better than the one in seventh grade. So that one was the one that kind of like hooked me on it, I guess.
Wait, did you go to a religious private school?
No, very far from it actually.
But they could just do like a religious musical and it was okay? I guess people do like
Yeah,
Joseph and stuff like that.
yeah, people do them all the time. For some reason, I feel like with theater, it doesn't really get addressed that those shows are like religious themed. Because I mean, Godspell especially is like the whole show is just him telling parables, and it's just him speaking essentially from the Bible for like a lot of the show,
Yeah.
in like really funny and goofy ways. So like they play it up so it's not overtly in your face religious necessarily, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's something. Maybe now people will think about it more, but
Yeah.
uh,
I don't recall if my school did any overtly religious. They probably did, though.
probably. I mean, there's a fair amount of shows like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know, yeah, like you said, people do stuff like that, and like Joseph, Jesus Christ Superstar, they do shows like that all the time. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a theater out here in Akron that does Joseph every single year.
Yeah. Yeah, just very popular.
As like their Christmas show. So
Oh, that's interesting. I guess the other side of that, um, those were the first roles you did. Do you recall like the first musical you watched that got you interested in them?
oh man, that's a great question. I know I went to see like my high school's musicals as I was growing up. I don't remember if those were the first ones I saw. And I watched like some movies and stuff growing up. Like I remember my dad always had us watch 1776.
Oh, I love
Um,
76.
yeah, he still watches it every year on 4th of July. He just texted me the other day saying that he's keeping up his tradition. So I watched stuff like that when I was younger, like all the old movie musicals and stuff. Oh, sorry, my cat's trying to jump up on me.
All good.
Uh, yeah, I don't remember like the first stage version of a show that I saw. Honestly, I probably should, but my memory is awful. But I know I remember went to see my brother when he was in the shows in high school. Were probably some of the earlier ones. He was in Anything Goes, and I actually remember seeing him. Now that I'm thinking about it, he was in Oliver. He played Bill Sykes. Well, I think when he was in 8th grade, so I would have been, oh boy, kindergarten or first grade probably. I remember seeing that one. That one had to have been one of the earlier versions. Don't remember much about the show, but I remember being there.
Yeah. I remember watching like recordings or like musical movies and stuff like that. I must have
Mhm.
seen physical things in school at some point, but I don't recall. The first one I recall
Yeah.
seeing in person was my freshman year of high school. Our marching band went up to Woodstock in Toronto, Canada,
Mhm.
and we saw Wicked in Toronto.
Mm.
But I slept through the entire back half of Wicked because I stayed up. I stayed up like almost all night playing Kingdom Hearts with Tommy in our hotel room, and then we just
Yep.
crashed in the chairs.
Yep.
And I just remember
Oh,
waking
man.
up to what's that lady's name? Like Kristen
Chenoweth.
Yeah, Chenoweth, like
Yeah.
belting something out and just being like, "What the fuck?" and then falling back asleep.
Oh, geez. Yep. I that's a good first show to see. A shame to fall asleep at it, but I've been there too. I remember I went to New York to see a show once. Not to get off track, but we or I went to New York for a trip with school also. And we'd been out like walking all day. We ended up walking essentially from the Brooklyn Bridge all the way back up to Broadway. So we walked, I don't know how many miles that is. It was insane. We were walking for hours. And then immediately went to a show. It was Bullets Over Broadway, which is like one of the new shows that year. Fell asleep for probably 80% of that show. Don't remember a single thing.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone tells me people got very upset that I fell asleep during Wicked. Like some of the other band kids were like, "How dare you?" I was tired. I'm sorry. Heard some of my questions. So we've talked about this before. Actually, no, before this question.
Yeah.
So how many musicals do you know off the top of your head? How many you've done now?
I know I have a running Excel sheet somewhere. Actually, it might be my work computer. I should probably put that on my home computer. Um, of to keep because I started asking myself the same question recently because I couldn't remember. So I started keeping track. But I want to say now I'm probably up into the 20s, maybe almost 30. If you count like cabarets and stuff too, I'm probably around 30. But yeah, so probably somewhere in the 20s in terms of just staged musicals.
How many do you do a year? Because I mean, other people listening won't know this, but you seem very busy. Like always, either are rehearsing for a show or are doing a show with very little in between.
Yeah. Yeah, so it kind of depends like how the schedules of shows that I want to do line up. Like back in the day when I was in school, I do one a year and that was it. Yeah, like since coming to Ohio and doing like the Northeast Ohio community theater stuff, yeah, like you said, typically stay pretty busy. Don't usually take that big gaps between shows. Before COVID, I want to say like what 2019 was probably like my busiest year. I think I did 6 shows that year and a seventh like right at the beginning of the next year. So most of them like overlapped each other.
Oh boy.
That that was a lot. So like I'd be finishing one and then immediately starting rehearsals for another one. So I never rested or slept or had time to play games or anything. But now I'd probably say like average maybe like 4 years typically. I mean, I say typically. There was the one year before COVID, and then I took a year and a half break. But like this past year, I probably did like 4 to 5 is probably usually where I'm at, and they still
Still a
usually run.
busy number.
Yeah, run mostly run right back up against each other. So when one ends, I usually jump right into the next. But I do it to myself.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I
we
accept.
haven't known each other that long. I think just under a year, and so we were still in the COVID times when we met, and so like
Mhm.
you weren't doing as much. But then it started up again, and everyone was just like, "Yeah, this is normal. This is what Jordan does."
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It's they were used to that when back before when I never had time to join. Then that year break when you started to join us, I was around a lot. And then yeah, back to this past month is probably the longest break I've taken since post COVID. Because I haven't been working on a show for about a month now, and that's by far the longest break I've had since I don't know, end of 2021.
That's crazy. Um, so of those past musicals, do you have one or a couple like favorite roles?
Yeah, absolutely. So probably all the ones I've done recently actually are probably up there, but probably my favorite that I've done was it had been my dream role for gosh, like 8 years or something. I mentioned earlier the musical Once. Um, so I played Guy in the musical Once. The guy's two main characters' names are just Guy and Girl. But I got to play Guy in that musical, which has, like I said, been my dream role for years and years and years. I saw the movie for it when it came out back in like early 2000s or something. I don't remember. But the musical came out in like 2012. Um, so that was awesome because it's like I don't know if you're familiar with it all or if any of the listeners will be familiar with it, but it's essentially based on the music of an artist called Glenn Hansard, who's like this Irish kind of indie folk rock type of musician. Um, and he wrote this movie and all this music with a woman named Marketa Erglova. So it's basically the character is him. So it's the music is incredible, and I got to play guitar on stage for like every song. So that one probably tops the list. I did that one earlier this year in like the March timeframe, and that was incredible. um, so that's probably my favorite. I've had a couple really other great ones that I did recently. I got to play Joseph in Joseph. Since we were talking about that earlier, that was a really fun one. I got to play Jesus in Godspell again once I moved here as an adult, which was really cool. And then I just finished up a run of Ghost the musical, where I played Sam, the Patrick Swayze part, which was not a part that I was expecting to love that much. But once I got into it and started doing it, that's another one of my favorites. That one was a ton of fun, very challenging, but very, very fun. Even though I left the show with a plethora of injuries from being thrown across the stage and running around everywhere. But yeah, it was definitely a good time.
Or are you typically the lead man in plays then? It seems like from your role list.
Um, I've been on a little bit of a hot streak lately. uh, to like back in the day, like through high school and school, and through like the first I don't know year and a half of shows that I did here, I wasn't typically getting main roles or leads or anything. just smaller parts or ensemble roles or stuff. But uh, crazy enough, when you do it consistently with no breaks for like 3 years, um, I think I just got a better feel for acting, and I was singing regularly, so I was training my voice better. So recently, I've landed a few more much bigger roles. So I never expect to get stuff like that, but it's been wild lately landing uh so many big roles. So hopefully I can keep it going, but we'll see.
Well, I guess that leads into another question I have, which is something we've talked about before, and I wondered if you had others, which is roles you would want in the future.
Ooh, yeah. That list is very long and always grows. But yeah, there are definitely a few. I still think one of the ones on the top of the list that I want to do hopefully soon is Roger from Rent.
And that
Um,
is one you mentioned to me.
yes. And were you the one you don't like Rent? Is
I
that
don't
true?
like Rent. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it is sort of like a weird thing where it plays on the AIDS crisis without really being like, I don't know. It doesn't feel cautionary about the AIDS crisis. It just kind of feels like he wanted to write a story about what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, he himself was very close to it.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know. I love the story. I love the music especially. Um, and yeah, that was what I didn't know that show very well when I was younger. But when I grew up and became mature enough to actually understand the musical and what was happening, that's one that I really like. And Roger, just especially, a lot of it was the first thing was the style of music, because I love singing like rock type
Hmm.
musicals. Um, as it once was a rock type musical. Ghost was kind of in that vein too. Like that's the type of stuff that I feel like I sound the best on and I like singing. So that's why Roger's always been up there, because he's the grungy rock guy that sings in the style that I like, on top of being in um a show that I think is really cool. So that's definitely one. I'd love to play that one someday. Theoretically, I still have a few more years before I age out of that one. Um, trying to think some of the other ones on the top of the list. I think I mentioned this one to you before too, but I would love to do Phantom of the Opera
You did mention that
someday.
because yeah,
Yeah.
the reason this came up, I don't even remember if I told you why I was asking. Um, I was just talking to friends about musical theater stuff, and
Hmm.
yeah, we were getting into a discussion about whether Rent and Phantom are good
Hmm.
because I don't think they're very good. Which I mean, maybe I'll give Rent another shot
Yeah.
because it has been several years at this point.
Hmm.
Phantom, I have not fully revisited, but sort of revisited the ecosystem of in recent years, and like
Yeah.
even watched videos of people talking about Phantom and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I still don't think this is for me.
That one's fair. That one I can see how it's not necessarily everyone's style. Um, that's how we talked about earlier. One of the earlier musicals I remember seeing and like starting to really love. Because my dad has always loved that one,
Mm.
so we like watched the movie, and I think we saw that in Pittsburgh when I was pretty young too. So I got exposed to that a while, and then I also did that one in high school, which looking back is absolutely insane that we put it on in high school.
It's a weird one to put on in high school.
Because the rights came out for educational purposes for like a few years, so I don't know. But so I did it in high school, which made me love it even more. But I played a kind of smaller role. I was one of the theater owners that year. So I would still love to revisit that. I know no community theaters can ever do it, but I would still love to play either Phantom or Raoul, really, ideally Phantom, but just being a part of that show again, I would love to do. Uh, but yeah, we'll see if that dream can ever come true. I kind of doubt it, but it's nice to have goals.
Yeah. Oh yeah, another thing on on the Rent thing before we circle more on this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, I really hate that I can't think of the guy's name. I really hate that he made a movie about his life leading up to making
Oh,
Rent.
Tick Tick Boom.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's just so masturbatory and like weird to do.
See, I can't speak to that one too much because I haven't really listened to the music and I haven't watched the movie or seen anything really about it. All of my theater friends will probably hate me for that because I've talked to so many people that have been like, oh, you have to watch this, or that love it or whatever. So I don't really know that much about that one, so I can't uh, comment to it very well. But the only thing I do know is that it's about him,
Yeah.
Jonathan Larson.
Yeah, I
It's
haven't seen it either. I mean, I've seen clips and I've listened to some of the music, but like just the thought of it is just kind of like, why do this?
yeah, I'd have to. I still want to watch it at some point, so maybe I'll get back to you after I've seen it at one
Yeah.
point and let you know my thoughts.
Um, yeah. I mean, did you have any more ideal future roles you wanted to bang out from
Oh yeah, I
your
mean,
list?
I mean, I know I just said that I had played Guy from once earlier, but that's still one that literally for the rest of my life, any opportunity I had to play that role, I'd immediately do it. Like I would quit my job to take a tour of that show in a second.
Yeah.
Um, that because that's like that. I just love that part so much. So that's another one. Any opportunity I could get to play that would be awesome. Then there's a million more. I won't take up too much time. But like Charlie from Kinky Boots is one that I'd love to play. JD from Heathers is one that I'd love to play, even though I'm arguably already too old for that. uh, but yeah, no, those are some of the big ones. I'm sure I'm forgetting some because the list constantly changes. But um, yeah, those are probably some of the tops. And I've been at least lucky to play one of them.
Yeah. Do you have any roles that you wish you could play but you can't because either aged out or it's a different gender's role or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one, I feel like obvious answer. I would love to be able to play Aaron Burr in Hamilton,
Mhm.
but can't do that. I'd still love to play King George in Hamilton, which I could play. But that I feel like that would be super fun. Uh, s-
Aaron Burr
let me
does
think.
have the best
I,
music in that
I,
musical.
yeah, I love his. I've sang "Wait for It" so many times in my car when I just need a song to like scream and belt.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I agree. That'd be. So now I'll just settle for. I got to play him in like a cabaret for one song we did, "The Room Where It Happens," or no, not "The Room Where It Happens," "Nonstop." We did for a cabaret in college, and I got to play it there because who knows why. So that'll be my little taste of it. um. Oh man, I'm trying to think. One of the anytime someone asks for like a gender bend song, a lot of the time I'll sing something from Veronica and Heathers because big fan of that style of music again. I also, when I get older, um, would really like to play Sweeney Todd. There's a theater here that actually just auditioned for Sweeney Todd, that I didn't end up auditioning for, but I know that's one I'm too young for currently. That I would definitely like to play that uh, in my later years. Um,
Yeah, I really like Sweeney Todd. The music of it, how it like calls
yeah.
back to itself a lot throughout songs. I think that's really that's one of the things that I really appreciate about musical theater and why I'm interested in it,
Mhm.
despite not being an active
Yeah.
participant. Is just I like music that feeds into itself. So like some of my favorite albums are
Mhm.
like that way too.
Yeah. Yeah. That I agree. I love that, and I think Sondheim was really good at that. Who wrote
Yeah,
Sweeney Todd? 'Cause I think a lot of his musicals do that. Like, God, what's the other one I just did? Into the Woods does that a lot too. Uh, yeah, I agree. Sondheim was really good at that kind of stuff. Even though his music is crazy in some points,
yeah,
a lot of his stuff is pretty genius in that way.
yeah. You've brought up so many musicals that I have not engaged with, and I'm like,
Yeah.
so some of them I've heard of. Like Heather's, I recognize as one I should probably watch at some point because it comes
Mhm.
up a lot. Um, some of the other stuff I've never engaged with. I mean, I've seen the film version of Sweeney Todd, and I've seen
Hmm.
videos of stage music from Sweeney Todd.
Hmm.
Same situation with Into the Woods, which Into the Woods musical versus movie seemed like an entirely different beast. Actually, maybe I have watched a video of the stage version of that.
There is a lot of videos of, like, the original stage version
Yeah,
on the chicks. When I recently did it, I remember ending up watching several of the clips to see what it was like. It is very old.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah, because this is the way I engage with musicals a lot of the time is just videos of the productions because
Hmm.
I don't go out much.
Hmm.
Um, and so I've seen a lot of videos of things I've been interested in, and there are ones that I want to see the whole thing of. Weirdly, one of them is the Percy Jackson musical, uh, which
Yeah.
are books I grew up reading, and I've listened to the soundtrack for the musical, and I enjoy it. I mean, it's not the strongest in some parts, um, but overall it's pretty fun. Carter is apparently doing that. He's in the it
Really?
or whatever the equivalent is for musicals for that.
Okay. Oh yeah, I think I remember him mentioning that. Yeah, that's cool. I don't really know that show super well. I actually just read The Lightning Thief recently,
Mm.
because I never read it as a kid, and there were several people who told me, like, you have to read this. And I also had a friend who forced me to listen to the soundtrack in the car on the way home when we were driving back from an event. So I don't know it super well, but I would like to see that too. If nothing else, I feel like the special effects and stuff could
Yeah,
be super cool.
yeah. It seems really fun. Yeah, yeah. I read those books a lot as a kid. I really loved them because I had a very deep interest in mythologies, uh,
Mhm.
and so those books played right into it. And then yeah, I found out there was a musical. I was like, oh shit, this seems interesting.
Yeah, that's I there's been so many, like, movies made into musicals recently, and so many of them have been bad. I feel like that one was at least decent. Um, Although I feel like there's a lot of people doing it now since I guess the rights are available, but it's all kids productions, which I guess makes sense because
Is
everyone
appropriate.
is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the original cast of that seems uh, excellent. Like
Yeah.
I've looked up their I think it was when their show run was ending, they like just did the soundtrack at a bar essentially, and I've watched that a couple times because it's very fun.
That's cool.
But it was like a cast of like for in terms of actors on stage, it was like six people doing all the roles. Not that there's a huge amount
Oh
of
wow.
roles in it, but like the
Yeah.
lead guy just plays Percy, and
Mhm.
then the lady just plays Annabeth, and then there's a lady that plays Clarice and the math teacher and someone else, and then like another lady plays his mother and side characters
Mhm.
and Serena Beauregard, and then another guy plays like Chiron and side characters and oh seven people maybe because yeah there's Luke and Taku. But yeah they're like
Mhm.
most people are doing multiple roles on stage and just
Yeah.
doing costume changes coming back out. Yeah,
Jeez,
it's like
that's
7 or 8 people, something like that.
wild.
Um,
Yeah, I imagine their costume change track is probably pretty hectic
yeah,
and stressful throughout that.
yeah. Um, I guess we're in the realm of it now. We should talk about adaptations because that is a big thing with
Yeah.
musicals. And that's obviously the thing I've engaged with a lot because I haven't been to many in-person shows, and
Mhm.
they range pretty wildly. And I think I'm in an interesting position where like I don't hate things as much because I don't have the original as a reference. Like that's always a thing.
Yeah.
Um, like the Into the Woods movie is fine by my accounts. I wasn't like this is stellar, but I wasn't like I
Mhm.
hate this. But then after seeing the actual show, afterwards I was like, oh, the actual show has a lot more going on. Is while more chaotic, is also just sort of more interesting as a result.
Mhm.
Like Cats is an obvious one, but I actually hate cats in all forms. Um,
Yeah, I'm not a big fan either. I never actually saw the movie, the recent movie, but I'm not a fan of that show, so I didn't really have much desire to watch the the movie version.
it shouldn't exist even as a show.
Yeah.
Like it's a book T.S. Eliot wrote for his godchildren or grandchildren or whatever the fuck the situation is. So it makes sense that it's just like, look at these cats, aren't they interesting? Let me
It's
introduce you to these cats. But
it's just
it's
like
like a just hours of cats introducing themselves, and then a cat dies, and then it ends, and then
Mhm.
that's it.
This is an absolutely fucking insane premise for a show. If you were to just describe to someone the plot of that show without telling them that this is a stage musical, they'd think it was like a fever dream you had and you were blackout drunk or something. It's insane.
What other adaptation? There's Les Mis,
Mhm.
which is again was fine. Um, Russell Crowe kind of sucked in it. Um,
Yeah,
Eddie Redmayne can't really face act, so that's weird.
that's fair.
But like
Yeah,
everyone else is fine. People weirdly give Hugh Jackman shit for that one. I don't think he's
really.
terrible in it.
Yeah, I liked him in that one.
I've seen him
I
get
thought he was
lumped
one
in
of
with Russell Crowe.
no, I thought Hugh Jackman was one of the better parts of that movie. I haven't seen it in a while, uh,
Yeah, it's been a
but
while since.
I mean, also, I mean, in general, Hugh Jackman is fantastic.
Right, he's
Uh,
great. Yeah.
so it stands to reason that he'd be better than some of the other people that maybe have no business being in live musicals. I think what really was a really cool thing about that movie, but also kind of hurt it, especially in stuff like Russell Crowe, was the live audio recording.
Yes.
Like, because especially for him, it did no favors. Um, which I don't know how much it would have helped to not do it that way, but
Yeah. I think there is also, particularly with these film adaptations of musicals, like they want them to succeed, so they cast popular people in roles that they really shouldn't be in, and as a result, cause them to not succeed.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
who was it in Mamma Mia that was it Pierce Brosnan that was
Pierce
not?
Brosnan was one of the dads. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's another one where it's just like you didn't have to do this.
yeah. I feel like they're getting better about that with recent ones. I feel like they still do that in some cases, but like some of the more recent ones, like um, oh shit, West Side Story.
Mm.
I don't know if you saw the new movie of that or if you see the show or anything.
I haven't seen the new movie.
Um,
I know they cast as much of the original people, right? But like, did they get different roles or something? Is that what happened?
so they had oh gosh so it was new people playing roles, but they had a oh gosh, was it Cheetah Rivera playing oh man
Oh, not
Cheetah
listed. So I'm
Rivera,
thinking of In the
Cheetah
Heights
Rivera.
is the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, yeah, that one was also um great. I don't know, there were a lot of people from the stage show in that one, because like Anthony Ramos played the lead in that, which he done on Broadway. um
Jesse Martin, is that his name? Jesse L. Martin, something like that.
he I can't remember, but I think they did a good job of casting that one with actual talented theater people. I think the Abuela was the original from the Broadway movie too, or the Broadway show too. Um, but there may have been several others I can't remember. Uh, but like in West Side Story, they had like some big name people, like Ansel Elgort played Tony, which I thought was super weird. He honestly did way better than I was expecting. I was expecting him to be trash. He actually did a pretty good job. But a lot of the other people, um, like weren't necessarily big name movie stars or whatever, but they were either big name people on Broadway. Like the person who just hosted the Tonys this past year was Anita Ariana DeBose. She was also in Hamilton and stuff. One of the guys from Dear Evan Hansen played one of the main roles. So there wasn't like a ton of super well known people, but they were incredibly good for a musical. So I feel like they're maybe getting better about that type of stuff in recent ones.
They just loaded with famous people that.
Yeah, well, that one we can just exclude that one from the conversation.
So yeah, you mentioned Dear Evan Hansen. How do you feel about that one?
I really like it. I mean, I understand the criticisms of it. I still haven't seen the movie, If that's what you mean. I have seen the stage show. I saw that in New York, but I haven't seen the movie.
Well, I have problems
Um,
with both.
I- okay,
The movie Ben Platt is too old to be playing Evan Hansen.
sure.
Everything they did to make him look younger backfired and made him look worse.
I mean, all I know is the wig is insane.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, the premise of that is just fucking insane. It's
yeah,
deeply
it is.
uncomfortable.
It's problematic. Yeah. I know. I have several friends who hate it, or at least hate Evan.
He's a bad
We
person.
used
Like,
to. Oh yeah, for sure. We used to do this thing for like warm ups when we do shows because you have to do mic check. And every day for mic check, I don't know, people will typically sing like a song that they have in the show or something like that. But sometimes we do themes. So we do like, oh, we're doing a Disney night, a dream roll night. Sometimes we do villain nights. And I had one friend who every time would sing Waving Through a Window because he hated Dear Evan Hansen. Or he hated Evan, I guess. I don't know how he felt about the show.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I really like the music. A lot of it's like right in my wheelhouse to sing. So I enjoyed seeing the show. Yeah, don't know about the movie. I haven't been avoiding it, but I haven't been like eager to see it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with adaptations is like it's kind of a gamble if you're gonna go like going in the first run of something, or not, I guess run is more a theater word. The first release, like the first week when a movie comes out, is a huge gamble because you don't know if other people hate it yet, and if you're just
Right.
gonna waste money on something that's just gonna disappoint you,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
a problem that happens a lot with like video game adaptations as well.
Hmm. That's why I really like that a couple shows recently have been doing like a not a adaptation into a movie, but just a professionally filmed version of the stage show. Like Hamilton did that, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
Come From Away did that, which speaking of Dear Evan Hansen, Come From Away should have won Best Musical that year. I
I've
don't
never
care.
even
Come From
heard of
Away
that.
it's so good. Um it's basically this big ensemble musical. Basically the premise is like there's this little town in Newfoundland that uh during 9/11 when all the planes had to get grounded, tons of these planes had to come down and like essentially trap these people in this tiny little town in Newfoundland. So it's just the story of all these people like coming together as a village to like put up housing and food and all this stuff for all of the people that were stranded because of 9/11 that couldn't fly.
Mhm.
Um, it's so good. But they did a live recorded version of the stage show of the with the people on Broadway, and I think it's on Prime, one of those streaming services. Um, that it that's a really really good one.
Yeah, I'm always very appreciative of those because that's how
Yeah.
I ingest most of my music content. There's a production company. I guess they are an official company now. They started at the University of Michigan called StarKid. I assume
Hmm.
heard of them.
Hmm.
They do that with all their shows, which is great, and I love
Yeah.
all their shows.
Yep.
Yeah, really fantastic stuff. Sam actually he's doing one of those. I think right now he's doing like I think he said he's doing
Uh,
Firebringer.
okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
Hmm. I don't think I know that one.
it's the
That's cool though.
caveman one.
Okay, maybe I have heard of that. Huh. That's cool. Is it like a comedy? I'm assuming.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's about the discovery of fire, basically.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's really good. But yeah, that's how I ingest most of my musical content, and yeah, that they do that for all of their shows, which is great. Um,
Hmm.
they actually they hadn't done a show for a while because of COVID, and they were doing just like online skits. I think they just on Zoom did like little shorter skit things rather than a full
Hmm.
show because they had to postpone it. I think they're finally doing a show again this year.
Mm.
Um, I'd love to go
Nice.
see one of their shows at some point because yeah, I love their stuff.
Yeah. Where are they based out of?
Oh, I don't remember anymore. I think not Chicago because I think somebody had to leave the production company because they moved to Chicago to be in other stuff. Um, yeah, I don't remember. But yeah, they were doing a show like every year at the end of the year they would do
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And now they do horror comedy stuff, which is fun.
Hmm,
Like the first one
that's
was
cool.
the guy who didn't like musicals, which is a musical about a guy who hates musicals, and then a meteorite lands and people start getting infected, and the whole world becomes a musical, and he's just trying to survive in this world that he hates. And then the next one was Black Friday, which was like a Cthulhu doll is being sold as a children's toy, and it's causing everyone to go crazy over it and start fighting.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, and the next one is I forget the title. It's something like nerds get killed in high school or something, and it's set in the high school, and it's like a slasher movie.
Okay.
Um, yeah, their stuff's really great.
Yeah. That realm of show is like fantastic. I've seen and been in like several horror comedy shows that are absolutely batshit insane, but really, really fun. Like I did Evil Dead the musical one year. Um I saw there's a Texas Chainsaw musical like adaptation that
how
I
does
don't know
that
if
work?
anyone so it's not really necessarily the plot of Texas
Okay,
Chainsaw
that makes
exactly.
sense.
Like part of it is because you have Leatherface and like
Right.
he's killing people with a chainsaw, but it's insane. Like they're all comedies. That and a there's a Die Hard musical. That's not really horror, but um, and these are all like blood shows. So I did these all were up at a theater in Cleveland that like specializes in that kind of crazy stuff. So like they'll rig their stage and their like pillars and set with basically water cannons that'll shoot blood into the audience when stuff happens. So it's shows like that are a absolute blast.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, that
Um,
was another one of my favorite roles. Probably was doing Evil Dead.
yeah, that sounds really fun. Evil Dead definitely seems something that's very primed for a musical already, just because
Oh yeah,
it's so
I
over
mean
the top.
very easy to translate into a straight up comedy since the movies are already insane and the
Yeah,
third movie is already essentially a comedy. Once they realized what it was.
yeah. Um, I guess in this vein, do you have, I guess outside of what you've done, do you have a favorite musical overall?
Great question. Again, it kind of like varies depending on what I'm listening to at the time. I still think overall, uh, I mean, once has got to be up there. I know I've said it for like three answers
That's
already,
fine.
but I really, really love that show, and it's so underdone. Um, and it's a really beautiful show. I also really like Phantom. Um, oh man, trying to think back through. I there's very few shows that I don't enjoy at least to some degree. Um, those are probably like my maybe all time favorites, but um, yeah, I don't know. That's a question that I always really struggle with because there's so many shows that I do enjoy that I um, have a hard time picking one. And there's so many that I've seen in the past that I like forget that I loved it so much because I haven't listened to it in a while. Like Book of Mormon was one of those where like when I saw that, that was my fucking favorite thing for a while.
Yeah.
And I haven't listened to it now for like 3 years. But so I go through stuff like that a lot. But if I had to pick one favorite, I'd probably say Once, both because I love it and because I love to be in it.
Yeah. I'm gonna write once down to watch it.
Yeah, there's a. I don't know if there's like much in the way of the stage show recording out there. I know the movie is out there, but uh, I I tried to look up a lot of clips when I was doing it to see like how they staged this or whatever, and I struggled to find continuous clips of, except for like a high school production that was, it was fine.
This is maybe a difficult question, and I feel like it will tie into some of your other answers. Do you have a
Mhm.
favorite soundtrack or even songs from like divorced from the musical? Like maybe even despite of the musical, you really like this, even if you aren't as enthralled by the musical itself, which is difficult because I know a lot of musicals are essentially the soundtrack. But
Yeah. Um, that man, another great and pretty tough question. Weirdly enough, a lot of the like theater songs that I like to sing the most aren't necessarily uh like tied to a show that people know. Like one of my favorite all-time songs to sing is called Belief. And I think technically it's from a show called Moment by Moment or something like that. But I don't know if that was like ever a full stage show or anything. Uh, and I don't know anything else from it. But that one particular song is like one of my all-time favorite songs to sing. Um, let's see. Uh, Trying to think of some of the other songs that I will just like put on to scream in my car when I need something to practice my voice on. See, there's several other things like that also where um, there's a musical theater esque album by one of my favorite theater composers. His name's Drew Gasparini. Um, and there's several songs on there that I love. Also, they're not necessarily related directly to a show, but like there's a song called "Disaster" and a song called "If I Loved You" or "I Loved You Too Much." That so good. Love singing those ones. These are songs that probably no one has ever heard of, um, but they're some of my favorites. Um, into again, tying back to some of the ones that I've already mentioned. Another one of my go-tos to sing. I love singing "Once on Glory" from Rent. That's always a good one. Um, Pretty much every song from Once, particularly "Leave," is probably one of my favorites. Um, I think I've got a playlist on my phone saved of just songs that I like to um, sing in the car, and I could probably go on for a while. But those are there's some. I'm trying to think of a good example of one where like I don't necessarily love the show, but I love a song. I know there's got to be some out there.
it's a thing I encounter more with not true musicals, but like Disney musical movies. I run into that a lot, where it's like
That's
I like this song a lot. The rest of the movie,
that's fair. I don't know if this counts, but I another song I can't really sing it, but I love trying to and singing it is um from Frozen 2 Into the Unknown, but the Brendan Urie version. Have you ever heard that?
I haven't. I haven't even seen Frozen 2
It
actually.
is there's a song in there that Elsa sings and Brendan Urie does a cover of it and it's insane. It's so good. Um
Like that's
yeah.
the reason I can never be the most famous Brendan, along with many other reasons. But that's
No.
a major barrier to entry.
It, if you can hop him, then you're up there.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like most people, most Brendans aren't spelled the same way, but his is.
Oh, okay. Is Brendan Fraser spelled that way?
He's A-N.
Is he?
Yeah,
Okay. I don't know how people spell their names.
yeah.
Uh, um, also, in terms of soundtracks that I forgot to mention earlier, maybe not. So I love this show. Other people and, general theater critic consensus might be that this show is bad. Um, but I have always loved and have a soft spot for the whole soundtrack of American Idiot. And I would love to do that show someday.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, or if you'd listen to it's the musical based on the two albums by Green Day.
yeah. I mean, I'm familiar with the music. I
So,
know that there's a musical, but I have not seen anything of the music.
yeah, I don't necessarily have one particular song from that, but that soundtrack in general, um, I love that whole soundtrack because Green Day was one of my favorite bands growing up. And the fact that they wrote a musical out of two albums that had nothing to do with each other and made the story I mean, it doesn't make much sense, but cohesive at all,
Yeah.
uh, still blows my mind a little bit, and I just love the music so much. So that soundtrack is one of my favorites to put on and sing along to. Um, and no one ever does that show. I wish they would, because that's another. Speaking of dream shows, dream roles, I would absolutely love to do that show someday, but no one ever does it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I have a particular love of even just albums that are soundtracks in themselves that don't actually
Mhm.
correlate to anything. So one of my favorite bands of all time is a band called the Proto Men. Um,
Okay.
they started in college and they made like a prog rock album about uh, the plot of Mega Man 2, I think, whichever one is Mega Man facing off against Proto Man. And so it is, uh, it's very sort of experimental and like just like it is him learning about Proto Man, confronting Proto Man, all that, and then they evolved into Act Two, which I think is one of my favorite albums of all time, and probably will be for
Hmm.
many years to come. It's called Act Two: The Father of Death, which is a prequel to the first album, and it is uh, the story of Doctor Light and Wily, which are the two scientists from the
Yeah.
games, um,
Yeah.
and how Dr. Light, like his father was a miner and died in the mine, so he wanted to build robotics to stop people from doing these dangerous jobs. And Wily wanted to commercialize this, and he's like, "Look at what you have." And then they're fighting against each other, building up to the moment he builds Proto Man, and it's
Hmm.
like it starts off like almost sort of Western inspired, and then becomes like 80s synth. And it like the album, if you buy the album, it comes with the lyrics and notes for the songs about what's happening as if like stage directions, and it is
Yeah.
like a fully made musical essentially in album form. It's
What?
incredible.
Okay, what is the name of this again?
Act 2: The Father of Death by the Proto Men.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna like message you after and get that in writing, because Mega Man, specifically Mega Man X, but all of the Mega Mans were like some of my favorite video games growing up.
Yeah,
Had no idea something like that existed. That sounds incredible,
yeah, it's phenomenal.
and I
I love
really
it so
want to listen
much.
to it. That sounds
um
amazing.
yeah, they're great. There's another band called the Megas that makes they took the level select and boss music from the Mega Man games and made individual songs for each character, which is
Mhm.
in a similar vein. But yeah, the Proto Man, it's like a fully comprehensive story thing, which yeah, I'd love a lot.
Wild. That's wild.
Yeah, I would love to see a musical made of that because it's like it's already mostly done. I mean, it would need to be padded
Yeah.
out, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's phenomenal.
Huh.
And they've been working on Act Three for years, but I think they're either the lead singer or the Wiley. I think it was the Wiley singer left, and then COVID hit, and they're doing rewrites and stuff. And now it has been like I think know how many years, at least 6 years since Act Three was like announced, and it
Mhm.
just hasn't come out yet. So who knows if when, if ever, people will see that.
Jeez. Now we'll have to look up Act Two in the meantime and hope that they come up with Act Three eventually, because
Yeah,
that
um,
sounds really cool.
yeah, it's great. I've listened to that album through many times.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like the album has achieved like a pseudo popularity. Like it got. I don't know if you've ever saw the YouTube series Video Game High School. That was popular like years and years ago.
Sounds so familiar. I feel
Uh,
like I
Freddie
have.
Wong did it. Rocket
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Jumper.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yep.
So like one or two of the songs were in that, and one of the songs made it into Rock Band 4. So it was like it
Oh.
had enough momentum to get into Rock Band. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, most people are just like unaware of the album. But yeah, it's really really great. And
Huh.
then there's another album. I can't remember the name of it. That I have two of its songs on my iPod. I didn't have the full album, but it's like a one of the songs is called like the Spider and the Light Post or something like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called. I have to look it up again. But yeah, that's another like musical album, but it's just like it is just an album structured like
Mhm.
a musical. It doesn't have a musical tag to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that shit because like I said before, there's the act of music feeding into the future songs
Hmm.
is really great.
Yeah. I really like cool concept stuff like that too. Like who would think to make a musical about Mega Man?
Yeah.
That's I love like the weird adaptations like that. A lot of cases like adaptations of video games or movies into musicals I feel like end poorly, but there have been some recent ones that are like so cool that I really want them to be good. Like I actually just got back from a trip last weekend of seeing Karate Kid the musical,
Okay.
which for me was an absolute dream because I have loved Karate Kid forever, and I loved it even more since Cobra Kai, the TV show, came out. And Drew Gasparini, the guy I mentioned earlier, who wrote those songs for that like theater adjacent album, wrote the music for it. So I went to go see it in St. Louis because it was like its world premiere for a month in St. Louis before they try and take it to New York.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. I mean, it has its problems, and I'm biased, but I've loved absolutely every second. And like I think Back to the Future, the musical, is playing in London right now,
Okay.
which is wild.
I mean, I love Back to the Future. I don't know how the
Yeah.
musical is, but
No idea if it's good or not, but the fact that they tried, kind of
Yeah.
cool. They could do some dope special effects with that one too.
yeah, I think the issue with adaptations is they either need to be very well defined and followed, because otherwise the fans will hate it, obviously,
Mhm.
or it needs to be open enough that you can create some sort of interpretation that works. So like Mega Man, the early Mega Mans, the story is pretty fucking loose. So you've got room there to do with what you need. So they inserted some story, like they made a love interest character for Dr. Light to like flesh him out some, and then like just telling the story of like, because Mega Man, you see the world as it is, and that leaves a lot of room to tell how it got there.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think adaptations like that are it certainly helps, and like that's something you could have done with Cats. You decided not to, but it's something you could have done with Cats. um, yeah, the whole the world of adaptations is very interesting because like
Mhm.
I don't know why it's such a cultural thing for people. I guess people just want to see more of the thing they like, but it backfires so often.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. I guess on that note, do you have anything that you would like to see an adaptation of that you think would make a good musical?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. It's not something I've really thought of before, honestly. I feel like being the like nerd that I am, it'd probably be one of the some like various fandom or video game that I'm a part of. That I don't have like a good example off the top of my head, but well, let's think. Um, like I don't know. There already was a Harry Potter musical, so to speak, with the Harry Potter musical, whatever. But like,
Yeah, that's Star Kid.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I would say that if that didn't exist, because that would be awesome. And I lean towards stuff that could be um, like more modern. Like I don't think this would work at all, but since I've been into it fairly recently, and like some more like fantasy stuff where you could put in like a lot of cool special effects and like action choreography and stuff. Like The Witcher would probably never work as a musical,
Probably.
but something in that like, and that's not necessarily my example, but something like in that realm, like that, or like Lord of the Rings, or like some big wild fantasy type thing. If you could turn that into a musical, I feel like it would be sweet.
Yeah.
Or really bad.
Yeah.
But um yeah, I may have to. They'll probably something will come to me later on in the podcast, and I'll be like, "Oh, this is it," and I'll think of it. But um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like these are questions that like there's so many options, and as soon as I start to think of them, I'm like, "Fuck, what are things like pop culture that I enjoy?"
Yeah. Like
Um,
one thing that comes to mind for me is like I really love Spider-Man, and I think there's
Mhm.
enough emotional through lines in Spider-Man to make a musical out of, but I'd be so worried about it being just fucking horrendous.
well, there is a Spider-Man the
Oh,
musical.
is there? Okay.
Yeah, that's actually a really good example because on paper, again, that sounds fucking amazing, right? And I saw the show twice in New York. It opened back like, oh boy, like 2012 or something, I want to say. Because it was when I was in high school that it was out in New York. But they did it's called Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. And the music was written by U2.
Oh boy.
So
So not a good musical then.
So like, you know, if you're a fan of U2 or not, that could very much sway you immediately one way or the other. But the book and the music just fucking terrible. They were so bad. The plot was awful. The only thing was the special effects were fucking dope. They were incredible. Like they had, God, I don't know, probably like 10 different Spider-Man actors. And they had like platforms behind the proscenium on the stage, up on the edge of the balcony, and their fly system ran like all throughout the theater. So Spider-Man's would be like swinging over the audience. Like we were sitting in the kind of the front of the balcony. So at one point, a Spider-Man landed like 15 feet away from us on the edge of the balcony and like swung back onto the stage. It was awesome. The special effects are crazy cool. They had to shut it down at one point actually because a bunch of Spider-Men were getting hurt because it wasn't super safe.
Yeah, that's why I figured like a Spider-Man musical would be cool, because I mean obviously fly systems are either made for a Spider-Man type thing, and then he has some very visual villains. Like you could do like Electro. Obviously, you could do very cool effects with Electro. It's a shame that a bad one has happened, and probably a good one will never come out of it as a result.
It's unfortunate. I feel like if they just stripped out the book and the music, you know, all of the elements of the show, kept the general premise of the scenic design and the effects, it's completely rewrote everything else. They could make something cool. They probably won't, since it's crazy expensive, but you know, that's what happens when you make questionable choices about who writes the book and the music.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I love Karate Kid, is because the guy who wrote the book for it was the guy who wrote the movie.
Right.
So
yeah, that's the way.
If you make decisions like that, then you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I mean that is the problem with adaptations, is it's so rarely are the original people involved. Like we talked about Percy Jackson, like there's there's two Percy Jackson movies that are terrible. Because the guy Rick Riordan is just not involved at all, and the musical is also, he's not involved, but they just like, you know, bothered to follow the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really think of. I feel like I had adaptations in my head that.
That's a really good question. It's I don't know why I've never thought of that, because I feel like there are so many good options out there.
Tonally, it doesn't work as a musical, but Percy Jackson just makes me think of like a God of War musical, just a very aggressive musical.
Yeah, that could be interesting. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like something in that vein of like this, like different world fantasy, or like old style, like that type of universe could be really cool.
And I mean, it's where my mind goes because of my interest in it. But I think like particularly Greece and Egypt have such like iconic visuals that it, you know, it makes for very nice looking sets as well. Like I don't know if there are probably stage versions, but another musical movie I really like is The Prince of Egypt. It's like incredible music and looks amazing, and I assume a stage version of it also looks pretty incredible.
One that should be obvious that is, I feel like I've heard that people have tried to make this, but I still can't believe that there's not a stage version of Hercules.
Yeah,
I feel like that should have been made years ago.
Right. Yeah, that's again, like very easy sets.
Yeah, and I mean that's got some of the best music in all of Disney musicals, I think. And the fact that it hasn't become a stage show yet is wild to me.
It's all the rampant inaccuracies. Hercules wasn't even his name in Greece.
I don't know, really. I don't know enough about the
Yeah, his name was
mythology.
Heracles.
Oh, yeah, okay, I did know that. Hmm.
Yeah, that one would be a very easy one.
Hmm.
How many Disney movies actually get like stage adaptations?
Um, let me see there a decent amount. You got like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Hunchback of Notre Dame,
Lion King has one, right?
Lion King. I'm pretty sure Tarzan has one,
Interesting.
or it at least has a soundtrack. I've never seen the stage show, but I think there's at least a soundtrack.
Is that actually the Disney soundtrack, or is it just coincidentally Tarzan? Because I think that one is public domain.
I do not know. I'm not super familiar with it. I just know people who love it.
I think Burroughs wrote Tarzan, but I don't remember. It's been too long.
I think it's Phil Collins.
Phil Collins is the music in the Tarzan movie, yeah.
Okay.
But the original Tarzan book, I mean, I think it's
book,
Burroughs.
Gotcha.
Um,
I feel like there's more too, but Disney. I feel like there's definitely more, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Yeah. Star Kid does a pseudo.
Frozen.
Oh yeah, well yes, of course, Frozen.
Yeah.
They had to do Frozen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, another Star Kid musical that I really love that I don't know if you've seen or heard of. It's called Twisted.
Yeah, is that the one about it's like Aladdin?
Yes.
Right. It's like, but it's told from Jafar's perspective or something.
It's told from
yeah,
it's incredible.
I've heard about that one. Yeah.
I think at this point I prefer it to Aladdin. Like the story of Aladdin is kind of whatever. Like Aladdin as a movie is carried by Robin Williams as Genie. Like the Aladdin music is pretty good, but I also like it's not making it. Most of it's not making it onto any playlist of mine. Like I think I had Prince Ali on my playlist for a while because I like that song. But I don't give a fuck about A Whole New World, which is the the big iconic one.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Disney also like recently, I guess Pixar more than Disney, but there've been some like really enjoyable movies that like would probably be fun as a musical, but also the effects have gotten more more involved. Like Encanto is great. It would be difficult to do an Encanto show, specifically because of Casita, like just having this dynamic house. I mean, I guess you could do it, but it would be pretty involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, the soundtrack for that one's great.
I don't know why I was just thinking this could be super silly, but if they did a musical version of Ghostbusters,
oh, great.
I would love that.
Yeah,
I feel like that one could be because you got some pretty.
I think that might already exist. That seems like a thing that probably someone tried to get off the ground somewhere.
I feel like there's probably been versions of it that have been attempted.
Yeah.
Maybe nothing that ever stuck, but yeah. I feel like that could be really cool. That could be really fun.
Yeah, because Ghostbusters gets all kinds of adaptations. There's been weird Ghostbusters video games. There's a canonical Ghostbusters video game that takes place after the second Ghostbusters.
Yep. Yeah,
I don't think they shy away from that. But actually, the guy for Ghostbusters just died, didn't he? Right, Ivan Reitman. I think he just died like last year.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was pretty soon after Afterlife came out, the kid Ghostbuster.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they really shy away from adaptation. But yeah, there's another like anything that like already sort of is goofy and can lean into it, I think is well suited to making the jump.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's no one ever writes any original ideas anymore, so there's endless content that people can pull from, I guess.
I feel like Simpsons ruined it, but I would have loved a Planet of the Apes musical. It'll never happen now because Simpsons like so thoroughly like dismantled
it. They?
Yeah, there's an episode where they in universe have a Planet of the Apes musical, and it's like a comedy musical. And like the big ending number is like you finally made a monkey out of me, which is like a running theme of like they had like running themes in their bit for this.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it'll never happen because like it's like a Simpsons episode now. But
That's
I
kind of
love Planet. It's one of my favorite movies ever. The original 1968 Planet of the Apes. Um,
that could be pretty cool.
and yeah, like it's already like it's in the era where um practical sci-fi costumes were like just good enough. So all these people are in these monkey costumes already, which would be like directly translated to the theater costumes.
Yep.
And like I think it'd be incredible. I really love the story of Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, that could be really cool. They did it's not the same thing, but they did make a King Kong the musical, which I heard, no way to tell. I have never seen it or listened to any of it. Heard was trash, aside from the giant King Kong puppet.
Not surprising because like what the plot of King Kong is not a story-driven plot. That was the problem with the
Yeah.
Was it 2005 or whatever King Kong movie, the Jack Black, Adrian
Jack
Brody
Black.
one. Like you can't take an hour getting to King Kong. That's what people are here for. You need to get the
Yeah. The only thing I remember about that movie is the giant gorge with the giant bugs, because I was scared of bugs back then.
Yeah. There's a musical comedy group called Tripod that has a song called King Kong, and the premise of the song is get to the fucking monkey, because it goes on very long, and they list other movies that could benefit from getting to the motherfucking monkey, which is whatever the interesting thing is of their movie.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't really make, you couldn't make a kaiju musical either, because you're not going to make Godzilla sing, which means you need to, introduce a bunch of people to sing, but everyone's just there for Godzilla.
Yeah, so if you're gonna have like those big monster effects in your musical, I feel like it needs to just be like a little bit thing, or like not a running character throughout the show, which is why another reason Ghostbusters would work. Can you imagine how dope the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man would be just for like a little bit at the end?
Yeah,
that'd be so.
Well, yeah, that's perfect, because people will be interested to see the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but nobody's there for the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. There's a whole world of just fucking buck wild adaptations that just like, you see this a lot with like video game adaptations too, where people just like miss the point of what makes a video game interesting, and like make a terrible movie out of it. I wonder if there probably are. I wonder if there are video game musicals though.
There definitely are. Oh man, I feel like there was just one made recently. Oh, I feel like I was listening to another podcast or something actually that was recently talking about like musicals based on video games, but I can't remember the examples of what they were anymore. Because I mean, there's definitely enough story-driven video games that something could definitely be turned into a musical.
Yeah, and again, I think it just has to be sort of open enough or goofy enough to lean into it that it'd be fun. Like Ratchet and Clank could probably get away with it because it's just a goofy thing. Legend of Zelda is open enough that you could slide something in.
That could be kind of cool.
Yeah, because that's another thing in like media. There's a lot of like musical episodes of things.
Yeah,
because it's such a popular premise. Like Scrubs has a musical episode. Batman: The Brave and the Bold has a musical episode. The animated Batman series.
Okay.
Because they introduced a character called the Music Meister that makes people sing, and so that is a character that gets brought up in DC properties to make people sing.
Huh.
The Flash TV show did it as well, the live-action Flash show several years ago. I believe Darren Criss was the Music Meister in that instance.
That makes sense.
Yeah, like it's a through line that happens. I guess probably because the showrunners are like, they probably have some meeting where it's like, could we make our thing into a musical? No, probably it wouldn't work, but we can do this one episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think superhero media is like, people are probably feeling superhero fatigue, but I think it is a thing that could be done into musicals because it can lean into the goofy side, and there are a lot of effects you can do depending on the hero you do.
For sure.
Obviously, some are impossible. You couldn't do a Flash musical because you cannot do a special effect really of someone speeding across the stage in no time flat.
You'd probably have to like just or slow everyone else down,
Yeah,
put everything else in slow mo, which
yeah.
yeah,
But also, I don't know. People also take media properties so seriously that I think anything leaning into goofy they would see as an indictment of the thing they love.
yeah.
Again, Star Kid has a musical called. It might just be called Batman the Musical. It might be before they were giving them different names. Because yeah, it would have been pretty short after the Harry Potter musical.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just like a very goofy and thing that has also a very fun soundtrack. There's like a rogue song of just the villains singing together. Instead of Joker, they have a character called Sweet Tooth, who is essentially the Joker, but he pulls out candy bars and makes puns with their names.
Hmm.
Like they're like talking about robbing a bank, and he
Fun.
says like it's payday, and pulls out a payday bar and like throws it across the stage.
Okay, that's kind of
Um,
funny.
but yeah, something like that. And obviously that's a small college theater production company just betting on the fact that DC won't hear about their thing. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in hearing about what's getting adapted, um,
Mhm.
even if it doesn't always work. But yeah, I don't know. Music plays such a large role in movies already that like the jump to musical isn't that absurd, even if it seems to be to
Mhm.
people. Like even like bringing it back to Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse had like its soundtrack was very important to it, and often cases was diegetic, and like
Mhm.
making, I guess in a musical it's almost flipped. You make the music important, but you make it non-diegetic a lot of the time. But
Mhm.
yeah, the music part is always the most interesting part of the musical, I guess rightly so to me. Just like the
Mhm.
theory of why this is what is happening and
Yeah.
what feeds into what's going on.
Yeah.
I think we made it through my list of questions at this point.
Cool.
I don't know if you have any other musical tidbits or fun stories from your times in musicals that you want to go over.
I'm man, I don't know. I mean, it depends what kind of stuff you're interested in hearing. There's all kinds of experiences that you can have throughout, depending on the show. Theater people are typically characters,
Yeah,
so experiences can definitely vary. Um, but yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, um, like I said, it's doing theater and stuff is pretty much how I spend all my free time. I think it's like a really good way to meet. I think it's a really good way to meet people and like get to express just like I said. If you want to perform and you don't necessarily like have if you like music and you want to perform and stuff, you don't have a band or you don't have like this. I feel like musical theater is a really good way to get into it because you can just be part of a group, which I feel like makes like I know how earlier you said you could never get up and perform because that's how you operate. But I feel like getting into it through like that kind of group setting is great because you can play like this tiny little teeny little ensemble role, but like you get to spend all the time with everyone on stage and you still get to like have everyone cheer for you and stuff. So um it's super cool. Yeah, I don't know. I really love it, which is evident in how I spend all of my time with it. This month has been weird, but I'm hoping to get back into something theoretically in a couple months.
do you have one on the horizon, or are you sort of waiting for auditions to open or something?
So I've got one theoretically on the horizon. I'm doing like a cabaret type thing in September, which is like a Neil Diamond, Barry Manilow, just like one night dinner theater cabaret thing. So I get to sing some Neil Diamond music, which will be fun. But then a theater around here is doing $1 Million Quartet coming up in a few months that I'm hopefully going to be a part of. That'd be another cool one to get to play some electric guitar on stage, maybe. I don't know if you're familiar with that one at all, but it's based on like the the Million Dollar Quartet. So Carl Perkins, Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis. Like one day they all got together to record. So that type of stuff. So hopefully that one may be coming up in a few months, but we'll see.
So you're about to have a several month break if you don't have anything for that cabaret.
Yeah. Yep. That's what it's looking like.
Does that make you
Yes,
like antsy to not be out doing one?
it's just a little, it's weird because I'm so used to like always being up on the go that now I have time to like watch TV. Like I finished several TV shows in the past week, and
Yeah.
like I have time to practice guitar and like actually cook myself dinner and stuff. So it's kind of nice in some ways, but weird in others. I have much less of a social life now, so that's a
Yeah.
reason that I'd like to get back to it.
There's
But
always the trivia Discord.
that's true. I need to get back on. I haven't been playing like any games lately, so I gotta
Yeah.
get back into it. And I still think my brother still does trivia some Thursdays over Zoom.
Oh,
So
really? I thought it went to full in person.
I thought it did too, but I remember he posted something on his like trivia company Instagram or something the other day that said we're doing this on Zoom. So maybe they're still doing it sometimes. So we could get the group back together eventually.
Love to do it again. I'd love trivia.
Yeah, man, I haven't done it in forever.
Yeah.
I've a couple times drunkenly played along to Jeopardy on my TV with some friends, but that's
Yeah.
the extent of the trivia I've had in the past long while.
Yeah, I've played like Jackbox trivia games. I have a Jeopardy game on PS4 that like it runs old episodes and you answer on your phone and like pauses them and you like play along with the episode.
That's kind of cool. Yeah. Yeah, so we could get the group back together for that theoretically, since I will still, like you said, be free time Jordan for a while theoretically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily have anything else theater related. I don't think. I've still been trying to churn through ideas of adaptations in my head, but I think I'm fresh out for now.
Oh, I remembered another question. It's actually in the vein
Okay.
of what we were talking about.
Okay.
Where do you land on the gradient of like wanting to do this long term? Like, do you actively want to turn it into a career? If a career opportunity arose, would you take it, but you're not actively looking for it? Like,
Yeah, that's fair. I actually thought about mentioning that earlier. So good question. I would love to do it professionally as a career. Like that would be a dream come true if I was able to do that. Currently, I'm not actively pursuing it or anything like that. I mean, like for the listeners who don't know, I work as an engineer in the day, so like I'm still pretty content with doing that during the day and working consistently in theaters at night because I still get to do what I enjoy doing in my free time, and I've gotten paid for it a couple times, so it's still like I still get to do what I love, as even if it's just a hobby for right now. So I'm not necessarily actively looking for it, and I don't know if I am necessarily going to actively pursue it in the near future. It honestly wasn't until recently, probably when I booked once, was the first time that I actually felt like maybe I could be good enough to do this more than just a hobby. Because up until then, it's not that I'm not confident in myself, but like I've done this enough and know enough people who have like gone to school for theater and all their experience and stuff that are like more trained and more talented that have really struggled with this kind of stuff. I know how fucking competitive and cutthroat that industry is. So I never really like believed that it's something I could do as more than just a hobby up until maybe recently. Like I said, with Once was the first time I thought like, well, I mean, maybe because I've never been like more proud of a performance of myself than that show probably. So basically, long story short, instead of rambling on, I don't know. I would love to pursue it someday as a potential career, but I'm also the kind of person who is terrified of large life changes. So uh, I'm not, right now actively looking. I know nothing's going to fall into my lap, but if they ever announce auditions for a tour of Once, I will be there. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Um, it'd be a dream, but I'm also, content where I'm at right now. So
That's fair. I would be interested in just getting involved in one sometimes, not on stage. I don't think I'd ever be able to do that, but like in the musical section, or even just like the background or sound or like anything, not actively doing it. But yeah,
yeah,
because it is a thing I'm fascinated with, and I think is very interesting. But also just like I mentioned I was in band, and like this is how I know I'd never be able to do it. I played trombone in band for 6 years. I didn't do it senior year because my schedule was swamped. But other than that, I played it the whole time I was in marching band. And anytime we had to do auditions for chairs in band, we had to either go to one of the rooms and play to a recording, or sometimes just stand up in class and play. And I could just never do it. Because like I was all right at trombone. I wasn't the best in the trombone section, but I was pretty solid when I knew the music. But the minute I had to stand up and do it myself, it's just like, nope.
Yep. No, I know exactly what you mean. Kind of like how I think we mentioned this at the very, very beginning of this discussion with like that kind of stuff with like auditions and whatnot. How it's, you get up there and you immediately get the anxiety of, oh, I actually have to do this in front of other people.
Yeah.
I 100% get that. That's one of those things where like, like anything you do, auditioning is like absolutely 100% its own skill. Like outside of performing, like you can be an incredible performer, like have the voice of an angel, have acting chops out insane, but actually getting into an audition and doing it well, I feel like as a whole, like you have to, it comes with practice like anything. The first few auditions I had in like school, and then the first few I had after I started doing community theater, they were rough. I was like,
there are like audition rules too, right? Like you aren't supposed to audition with a song from the thing you're auditioning for, right?
Yeah, they typically, it'll depend on the show and like on the director. Some people will do it differently. Typically for like musicals, at least in like the community theater shows and stuff that I do, they'll ask for like a 32 bar cut of a song in the style of the show, but not from the show. Sometimes people will ask for 2 cuts in contrasting styles, so 2 different songs that are one up tempo, one slow, or something like that. Every once in a blue moon, someone will have you do like a monologue or a cold read from the script. That happens more for plays, though, not as much for musicals, in my experience. But yeah, either way, just getting in there and like, I can't tell you how many times I've gone into an audition with a song that I know like the back of my hand, started, and halfway through it, just the words just escape me, and I was like, I've had to like ask the piano player to stop and start over several times in auditions, because I just like, you get up there, you get nervous because it's scary to do that in front of people.
But do those nerves not translate to like, do you not feel the same way when you have to do it the night of the show?
Yes and no. I think the big thing with auditions, and as I've done more shows and gotten to know people, I've gotten a lot better. So like, I typically don't go into auditions very nervous anymore, unless it's at a new theater or with like a new group of people. Because if I'm doing it for like a director that I've worked with before, or at a theater that I'm familiar with, a lot of the nerves aren't necessarily there, because like I'm comfortable here and I know people, you know what I mean? And people know who I am. So I don't feel like it's as much pressure. But if you're going to like a new theater, then I'll go into auditions like handshaking, like voice all shaky and stuff. So it kind of depends. And kind of similar to a show, I think with shows, it's always kind of different, just because, we've been practicing for so long, and you have it under your belt, and there's more so the excitement of getting to do it rather than the nerves of, am I good enough to get cast in it? You know what I mean? So like you already have it, you are doing it because you earned it, whatever. And also typically with a show, I'll be very nervous for the very beginning, and then like once you get through one song or like once you get through one scene and you hear the audience cheer, whatever. For me, it typically nerves start to like fade away, and you get comfortable, ease into it after getting one of those under your belt. But it also, like, since you do long runs of shows, like opening night, the nerves will be really high. And then after that, you're like, okay, I've done this before. And you just kind of feel more comfortable with it. But it also depends show to show. Like I was shaking and nervous every night before once because I cared so much. But then, I did shows like, I don't know, where I was a smaller role. Like I did Kinky Boots recently. I was a tiny little ensemble role with one featured song. I wouldn't even like get into my costume until 10 minutes before the show. I would just kind of chill backstage and like walk out 30 seconds before I had to enter. Like I never really got nervous for that because like I'm not the star. They're not here to see me. This is kind of just a show that I'm in. It's fun, but it's not like, I'm not driving it or no one's counting on me to whatever. So it kind of depends on that kind of stuff also.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing you said about auditioning reminded me of a question as well. So you mentioned doing songs with different styles and stuff like that. Do you have a particular type of song you really like? Like for me, the Disney songs I tend to gravitate towards, if I were to ever sing anything, which is a rarity, is like villain songs, because obviously my register is more suited to the villain songs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything like that?
Nothing like super specific. It typically depends. Like if for the style of show, I'll kind of pick something that fits that. So if I'm doing like a rock show, I'll try and pick like a more rock-ish song. If I'm doing like a classical show, I'll pick more of a classical song. But in general, I tend to like more modern, like belty stuff. So like I'm not so much of an old classical style of musical person. I'm more like either like up tempo or ballady. Modern like pop or rock musical is typically, if I had to pick something without a style, I generally gravitate towards that type of stuff. So that's why I like stuff like Rent, for example, because it's that style of music. I'll typically gravitate towards at least that vein of music, but I'll try and cater it a little bit to whatever I'm doing.
You're the theater kid that busts out Defying Gravity, is what you're saying.
I never have, but maybe I'll put that in my book now.
But in that vein, at least.
Sure. I mean, Wicked's a great musical, so why not?
I think that's all I have for questions at this point.
Yeah. I will say, just to add on to that real quick before we finish up, there are also, just in the conversation of auditions, there are songs like Defying Gravity where there's a list of songs that you should not do in auditions. There is a no-no list of stuff like, yeah, we've heard this a million times. Do not sing these songs. So there are songs like that I typically try and stay away from. I can't even think of good examples right now. I'm Alive from Next to Normal is one for like rock shows for boys. People sing that so often. But there's stuff like that where like I typically try and pick slightly lesser known stuff, maybe, if I can, which is why I really like that song Belief that I mentioned earlier, because like no one knows about it, but it's in that same style that I like to sing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, because it's an element of like, if you're the prime theater kid in your high school's already sick of hearing it. Why do you think the audition people want to hear you belt this out?
And if you're coming in on like the second day of auditions after they've seen 50 people and you're singing a song they've heard 12 times, they're going to clock out. They're not going to listen to you unless you are, blowing them out of the water. Yeah. So got to make yourself memorable.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for coming on. This was fun. We clocked like an hour and a half here.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you. This is cool.
Yeah. It's set up so that people can be repeat guests if they enjoyed the experience as well. Generally, there's been no repeat guests so far, since obviously there's only been 7-8 episodes or whatever. but yeah, generally leave some room. And then I always tell people, because I feel like when I ask people to come on this, they think they need to have like a very specific thing in their wheelhouse, which is beneficial because
Mhm,
like obviously we've had a nice discussion about musical theater, and like Dom and I
mhm.
did science and academia and stuff like that, and like it does help to be in your wheelhouse. But also, if people want to get weird and hyper specific about a thing, I don't mind. Like if someone's like, I just saw this movie, it was fucking terrible. You should watch this and let's talk about it for an hour. I'll do that. Or if, like
Okay.
if you're like,
Okay.
I really love this series or this, something
Yeah.
like if you listen to the Proto Man album, you're like, this was great. Let's talk about that for an hour. Like I don't care
Okay.
how weird it gets. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, I had a lot of fun. I could definitely come back on sometime in the future.
yeah. Maybe I'll try to tap you again before you get busy again. Try to talk about something. So yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
thanks for watching or listening, whatever the case may be. And, see you next time.